What's up guys, DIY Salvage Guy here, and on this channel, we just learn as we go. Today's episode is a full step-by-step DIY guide how to do a heater core replacement on your BMW. This one specifically is my 2011 BMW 328 E90, but it'll be pretty much specific for any vehicle that you have that's a BMW, or how to replace a heater core in general that is behind the dash. This job costs about $3,000 if you were to bring it to a shop. So stick around, make sure you guys like and subscribe down below, and I'm gonna show you guys how to save thousands of dollars and do it yourself. It's pretty simple to do, just a lot of steps. So without further ado, let's hop into this right now. This job is going to take about 20 hours, so make sure that you guys give yourselves ample opportunity to do this. So what we're looking for is the AC lines right now. You have your high pressure here, and you're also going to need your low pressure. So on BMWs, well, 3 Series here, you have your high pressure in here, and you have your low pressure one in there, right behind the power steering fluid reservoir. I took the cap off of it already. So have it professionally discharged, but that is the location that you would use if you had to discharge it. Alright guys, we're going to give you a quick rundown of all the tools and equipment that you're going to need in order to perform this type of procedure. So we're going to need a lot of different things, so make sure that you guys have it before you actually get started on this job. So in order to start, what we're going to need is plastic trim tools. We have trim tool removal, so you can get a kit off of Amazon, cheap, nice and easy. We have metal ones as well, but we're not going to be using that for this. You're going to need some zip ties. You're going to need a torque wrench. You're going to need your new heater core. You might need some antifreeze. This would be a good time to change your coolant if you haven't done it in a while. You're going to need an OBD2 scanner in order to clear any codes that might arise afterwards. You're going to need your Torx Set. So this is your male, you have your female, larger sizes as well. Then you're going to need your metric socket set, small, and large. You're going to need some wire cutters, like so. You're going to need your favorite ratchets, like so. So you're going to need your favorite impact gun as well. Then, since you are pulling a vacuum on your air conditioning system, eventually you are going to need some air conditioner Freon. You are also going to need a hose system. You're going to need your favorite guide in order to do this, or YouTube. And lastly, you're going to need a vacuum pump if you plan on doing it all yourself and completely doing it and everything. So that's everything. That's all the tools. So let's get started on this. All right, so car's in neutral, and first thing we need to do is pull up the shifter knob here. So all you do is just pull, and it pops right up. There's nothing to remove. Pulling the leather taut, trim tool in here. You just pull up, and this whole thing comes out and is removed. So you have the clips here. It's just pulling up. Now we have our interior removed. Now we have to remove this storage compartment as well. So the reason that we have not disconnected the battery yet, we will need to do that. We have to move the seat still. We need to remove this, and we need to remove everything in here. So what we have to do is kind of just pull. Just pops right out. And we have a wire to disconnect. These clips all more or less have a little piece that needs to be depressed, so you're gonna want one of these like tools. So you're gonna have to press it in, and then it slides right out. We have 2 screws here, 1, 2. Looks like maybe an 8 or a 10 millimeter. So we're gonna have to remove these, and we're gonna have to start cataloging the bolts. So make sure that you guys have little plastic bags that you guys label accordingly. You do not want to mix up your bolts or lose them. So we have our baggie here, BMW 328 center console. We're going to start cataloging our bolts and stuff. This thing you rotate clockwise and it pops out of here. So now all these wires are disconnected. This is also free to come out as well. So the last thing we need to do is move these seats back, and then we're going to disconnect the battery in a minute. We're going to remove our seats all the way back now. So we pull up on the shift boot for the emergency brake. There's a spring clip in here. I'm going to show a picture of it. There's a little thing you have to release. So you basically just pull towards you on this. These two little clips pop right up. And again, make sure you catalog it, guys. You don't want to lose this stuff. 2 bolts. That's full removal of the center console. Make sure that this is up nice and high because we are still in neutral. Now, if you needed to replace your airbag module, this is where it would be right now. So you would just remove these couple bolts and this would pop right off. We're not doing that because we're replacing the heater core, but just letting you guys know that that is where this is. So now that the center console is out, we want to make sure that these seats are all the way back and all the way down as they are. And then we're going to remove the battery and disconnect that. So now we're in the trunk. You got the BMW battery, it's right under here. So in order to get to it, what we need to do is remove this. This folds over, comes right out, and our battery is right here. So in order to disconnect our battery, we're going to remove the negative cable, move some of these out of the way, and you have a 10mm nut right here that we're going to disconnect. So you also want to make sure that it doesn't slide back down and reconnect. You know, just put a towel in between it. That way you know that the connections are never going to touch again. Now we have to remove this micro filter housing. So there's 6 bolts that hold it on. Now would also be a good time to change your filter. This one is fairly new, so I'm not going to change it, but this would be a good time to do so. We got the upper microfiber housing removed. We got the lower on that side. We're gonna have to remove both of these now. We have a wire that we have to disconnect as well here. We have clips here. We just pull up. We have a bolt here that we have to remove, and this screw here. Show you guys real quick. Your bolt right here, and your screw. It's the same thing on both sides, and this part should lift up. So there's clips in here that we need to depress right in there. And that will release this. So we're gonna have to push those in and pull this out. Slides right out. Just give you guys a better look right here. You got these clips. So we'll take both of these and set it to the side. Now this whole piece can come off. Next thing we need to do is remove these rusted up bolts. These might pose a problem. I was going to use the impact, but I'm going to actually just ratchet it off because those things are pretty rusted and will be very prone to stripping. Next thing we have to do is remove these 2 bolts and also the mass airflow sensor, which is right in here. The last thing we need to remove is this right down here, which is a screw, and then we will have this entire thing to be able to take out. So what we need to do now, there's a external Torx down there. You guys can see it. It's where the linkage connects. So we need to rotate the steering wheel a little bit in order to get that to be facing up so that we can take that off. Alright, so we should be able to get in there now. So we have an E12 Torx bit. Now, it's extremely important to note that there is a airbag spring in the steering column. So once we remove this, we need to secure the steering wheel. And the way that I'm going to do that is by buckling the seatbelt around it and keeping it secure. So we reconnected the battery so we can move the seat up a little bit. So steering wheel is in a locked position. So we'll disconnect the battery again. All right, battery's disconnected, steering wheel is in a locked position. So let's remove that bolt. You guys see right down in here, that is where the bolt was. So we took that out and now we're clear. All right, so this next step, you got to make sure that your AC is depressurized at this point, and we need to remove this bolt and this bolt as well. It's number 6 Allens. Let's take those out right now. So we disconnected the AC lines. You have this one right here. We tucked that away behind the strut bar, and we also have this one down here as well, and we tucked that one away as well. So these are out of the way, and what that did is it exposes these 2 Torx bolts in here. It's T30, so we're gonna have to remove both of those as well. We taped up these lines here to prevent moisture from getting in, and that eventually is going to pull through on the other side. So we have to remove the water lines now, and I'm gonna stuff a towel down there to absorb any of the fluid that might come out. Next thing I need to remove is this upper and lower water line. So this one's pretty easy. All you have to do is just clamp down and remove this. It'll take a little bit of wiggling in order to get off, so we'll see how that goes. So just want to point this out here, guys. The top hose was this one right here, and basically it gets jammed on there with the sediment and everything, and just over time. So what I did was I used a heat gun, heated it up a little bit, and then I wiggled it around with some long pliers, and eventually it just came off. The bottom one is a bit simpler or harder depending on how you want to look at it. It uses the standard C-clamp from BMW, just like this, just like these ones, where you need to just pull up on the tab and then wiggle it off. So if you don't know that, it takes a lot longer to do, but we were able to figure that out pretty easily. So that's something to keep in mind. So now we have a towel down there collecting all the antifreeze. We have our hoses facing up so that they do not leak. And now we are done from this side. So now we have the fun part of going on the inside and figuring all that out. So now we need to remove the interior as well. So we're gonna have to remove this entire dashboard, this whole thing, but we're gonna start here. We have these 3 bolts. So see, it kind of just comes down. Let's see, are there any other bolts? So probably just slide it forward and disconnect all of these wiring harnesses. Speaker, light, and some other things here. All right, so real quick, guys, I could not get this wire out, and rather than trying to break anything or anything like that, I just took the whole piece out. So there's 2 little clips on both sides, and then there's a little wire piece as well that comes in, and you just slide this whole thing out. So we're going to just leave this in, and then we'll put this back in on the other side when we reinstall. Just so you guys know where we're actually trying to get to, that right in here is the actual heater core. So we need to get obviously up in there. So we need to remove all the rest of this. Next thing we have to remove is this steering column trim. So we're going to use our trim pieces right here and remove that. So this is the part that's coming off right now. We have the top, show you guys that. And now we have these little retainers right here, and on the other side. So we're just going to push those through and remove this piece. So show you guys, you see these clips right here? These things squeeze together, and then they push through the hole on the steering wheel column here. And then the next thing we need to do is remove these clips right there. So these right here, and what we're going to do is we're going to push over and down, and then that will remove this bottom trim piece right here. If you have a steering wheel warmer equipped, then you need to remove this clip. You do that by pushing out on these tabs here as you pull out the clip. So now we have our entire steering column exposed. There's a couple wires that need to come out. One's here, you have another one like right around in this area. One of them is a little difficult to get out if you don't know what you're doing. So what you need to do on this is you have this little push tab that you push down right here, and then this lever slides over and it releases the entire thing. So that will remove all the wires from the wiring harness, and we need to disconnect it right in there as well, and we'll remove this column. So there's 4 bolts in here. I'll show you guys. You got this set right here, so that one, and then you have one further down in there. You're gonna have to take both of those off. There's 4, 2 on each side, and when you remove them, you want to remove the forward ones first, and then you want to take these ones off. But you want to make sure that you are supporting the steering wheel so that it does not just fall down. So we're going to put something underneath it to make sure that it holds up. Could be anything, just make sure that it holds up. Helper would be really good here, but I don't have one, so just use something to support the steering wheel. Remember the steering wheel position when you go to put it back in. Give you guys a better look at that bolt that we need to remove in order to remove the steering wheel. So you want to make sure that the steering wheel is facing up, and you can remove that bolt pretty easily. As you guys can see, we got the steering wheel out. So now we have to work on the rest of the stuff. We're going to start on that side now, and we're going to start removing this dash, all these trim pieces and all that stuff. And little by little, we'll be able to get to the heater core, which is underneath in here. Next thing we need to remove is this trim piece. So we're going to use a trim removal tool in here and pop this whole thing out. Next we have Phillips head for the cup holders. So now we have to remove the glove box. We got 4 bolts up here. Remove these 2 already. You have those 2. Then you have one right there and another one right in there. 6 bolts in total. Make sure you keep track of everything. Next thing we need to do is remove these trim pieces. So we got the wood here and we have the wood here. So next we need to remove these caps on both sides, and we're going to remove this whole pillar. There's going to be a T20 bolt underneath here that we're going to have to remove. So we got that bolt. Let's remove it and take this pillar off. Do the same thing on both sides. Next thing we need to do is remove this clip, this little trim piece. So we're going to pop this up with the trim tool, and there's a speaker under there. Might be a couple bolts that we'll have to remove as well. So if we had a speaker, this is where it would be right here. I don't know if we need to remove this piece yet. I'm unsure at this point. I'm going to leave it intact right now. It might just be connected to the dash, so we'll leave that. But what we did need to do is pull out this piece. So we just pull this up, and we got this wire, so let's pull that out. Next thing here, we have to remove this. So you guys see 2 clips here, so we have to push these down, then this will slide right out. So this is the next thing we removed right here. It's just held in by these 2 little clips, so you're really just pulling. Then you have this thing in the back as well. I showed you guys this before. What it is you push this down, and this slides out like so. Next, we're going to be removing the AC trim unit right here, and then we're going to remove the radio after that. There's going to be bolts, but right now we're going to pop some trim tools in here and pull this out. We have that removed. Next, we have to remove these 2 bolts. They are Phillips head screws. You guys see that? So we got the radio down, disconnect all the wires, then we're pulling the radio completely out. So next thing we have here is radio is removed. Now we have to remove this. So you got the 1 clip there, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. Next 2 things we have to remove these 2 bolts. That will remove this assembly. Then we have to remove these 2 bolts to remove this instrument cluster. So there's 2 clips on this side, so we're going to wedge this side out, and then we're going to use a trim tool to wedge this out as well. So keep that in mind when you're removing that area. Alright, so now we have to remove the dash from the actual assembly. So what we need to do is we have to remove a couple bolts. So we got 1 there, got 1 there. We have to remove this as well. So we have 1 here, somewhere in here. We have another one down in here as well. So probably right here. Then we have another one down there and another one there. A couple more bolts we have to remove. We got that guy right there. We have these 2, 1, 2, and we have another one right in there as well. We also have another bolt in here. guys see that right there, so make sure you take that out as well. So after you have all those bolts removed, we're going to remove the dash itself. So we're just going to gently pull on that until it comes out. One more important thing to note, we have the airbag connected up here still. So we have to disconnect these. You guys see these two wires? So we're going to have to disconnect those, and then this should slide right out. So a quick point of reference when you're removing the airbag. So the airbag is a pain in the butt. So you have these clips here. These sides kind of slide out. And then you get this, basically this whole thing kind of sliding backwards. And then it all slides out pretty easily. But the key is to be able to get these things off without breaking them, which is not an easy feat. So be careful if you guys are removing the airbag, and make sure your battery is disconnected. We have to remove these styrofoam pieces here, so we're going to remove both of those. Looks like it's just held in by this bolt. There might be something lower on as well, but we'll start with that and see if it comes out. Next thing we have to do is we have a cap down there. You guys might be able to see it's very similar to that, but it's down in here. So we need to remove that cap and any hardware that is connected to it. So we might have to move some of these wires out of the way to manipulate it so that we can get in there, but we'll take a trim tool piece and get that cap off and see what's under there. So you guys can see that bolt right in there, right above the tube. So we have to get that out. Looks like a Torx bit. Remove that. So that's the bolt that has to come out of there. It's a long one, so just keep spinning and pull. Eventually it'll come right out. Then we have another bolt down here. Right in there, guys. Bolt is, just for reference, under here. We have to remove that as well. So you guys see I'm using a double extension for the ratchet, and I'm using a ratchet gun in order to get it off easily. So you guys remember the trim piece bolt that was here? We have the same thing here. You can see that the Torx bit is connected to it right now. And all we have to do is just spin that out. Be very careful not to break this. It spins right out. You guys can see the kind of screw that we have right there. We're gonna have the same thing here. We have that bolt right down in there, so we'll do the same thing. So with the styrofoam here, there's two bolts, clips here as well that need to come out, there, and then we need to remove this bolt in order to remove this computer. We don't have to disconnect any of the wires or anything like that. It'll simply just move aside. And then we have a clip here that we need to move out as well. And then we need to remove this bracket behind it and disconnect it. Next thing we have to do is remove this bar. So we have to remove this, and we have bolts here. Two here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I think we have 5, 6 over there. And then we have another one right there. And it looks like we have another one right here as well. We're also going to remove this air duct by simply just popping it off and taking it out. So a couple more bolts we have to remove as well. We have one right here, another one right in there. Just for reference purposes, it's right next to the steering column. And we're also on the outside looking down, just for reference purposes. You have one right there, and you have another one right there as well, showcasing you guys all the spots that this bar is connected. Then we have one more bolt right here, which you're going to need a Torx for in order to get that one off, and that should be the last one. Also make sure that you guys disconnect all the wires and all the harnesses from this metal piece. There are a lot of them, so make sure you disconnect them and remember where they go. Now we have to remove this duct here on the passenger side, and also that screw right in there, and this metal bar should come out. So after we remove the metal bar. You guys see it over there now. This is what the interior of your car looks like. And the heater core that we need to get to, you can finally start to see, which is this whole piece here that we're gonna have to remove. So we're almost there. We're gonna have to remove the heater box now. So now you want to make sure that you have a moisture barrier down here. I have a plastic garbage bag tucked into the rug, and I also have a towel on duty ready to soak up any of the coolant that is still in there. So this is pretty free now, so we're just going to pull this out, and the hose is going to come out of here, and we should be able to relieve a couple bolts and get to the heater core, which I think is right here. So now that we have the heater box completely disassembled and removed, we have to remove this rubber boot. Then there's going to be 2 screws that we need to remove as well. So with that rubber boot removed, we have 2 screws, one right here and the other right in here that need to be removed. So this is the heater core right in here that we need to remove. What we need to do is remove this. So these 2 bolts right here, these 2 bolts right here, and then one here and one here, and that will allow this heater core to kind of slide out. We might have to move this as well. So we have all these pieces removed, and the last thing to do now is to kind of put this up and slide this out. We're going to take the hoses off after we remove it. So let's slide this out. We'll pull it straight out and hold it up so that nothing else leaks out of here. So this is what the heater core looks like. We have to remove these 2 hoses, and it's very important that we match this up to be the exact same way, and it needs to go back in that way as well. So let's remove these hoses and let's get this new one installed. One important thing to note, guys, make sure that you get the right heater core replacement. This apparently is a Valio replacement. This is a Denso. You guys can see the difference in the ports here. They don't match, so I need to order a new heater core, and we'll finish this video in a couple days. Now, big question is, how do you tell what heater core manufacturer you actually have? So the only thing that you need to do is actually just remove your radio. So you might have to remove the bottom air conditioning cluster, and once you remove the radio, you'll see this tab back here, and it actually says Valio on it. So that tells me that this is a Valio heater core. That way I know what I need to order in order to get the job done. So I want to show you guys what a blocked heater core is like. So we're going to put a little bit of water in here. Now naturally this should just flow through. You guys see how little is actually coming through here. So we are blocked in here completely. And this heater core is a new one, just to show you. That one has way better flow than the other one. So we got the heater core back assembled. You guys see that? Now we'll reinstall. Couple install tips here, guys. When you're putting it back in, you have this flasher unlock traction control module, and it sits right up in here, and it's pretty hard to get to. So what I did was I just slid it out. So I'm going to install this wood trim piece. I'm going to put these wires through here. Then I'm going to connect that and push it back in. Alright guys, we got the interior completely back together. Everything is good, and so now we need to test it. So we got everything all back together. The only thing we still have to do is put this in. It's giving me problems, so we'll figure that out in a minute. But let's test this out, and then we have to recharge the air conditioning system as well. So let's see what kind of error codes we got. So we got some issues here. Check engine lights on. Looks like something with the brakes, maybe ABS. So we do have our scanner, so we will scan the system in a couple minutes. But let's check the heat, see how this is doing. So you guys can see the temperature gauge here. Hopefully you can. It's sitting at 130 degrees right now, 120, and it's still climbing. So we're good. The heat actually works again. That's going to do it for today's episode, guys. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit about this. You guys got to see a full step-by-step DIY how-to guide for the heater core replacement. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for being here, continuing to support the channel. I'm going to keep doing these videos and showing you guys how to become a DIY salvage guy yourself.